Good morning, everybody. I'm Melisa Nielsen with Waldorf Essentials. This is a tough topic, a really tough topic. I had a mom message me a few weeks ago, and she was not a mom that was that had been following us. She just found us, and I think she was really searching and really struggling. And she said, "My daughter and I just lost my dear husband." And my heart immediately dropped for her. And through tears, I attempted to sort of give her some words of advice that I think are pretty sage words. And so I wanted to be able to share those with you today. The first thing is when we lose somebody or when we're attempting to comfort somebody, whether it be a child or an adult, is to let them know it's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel the numbness and sadness that they're feeling. And if there's somebody that's highly spiritual, chances are they are already feeling the effects of that person leaving this plane and entering the other one. Now, I will say the number one piece of advice that I give is know what you believe. And that is really, really, really hard, I know, for a lot of moms. A lot of families, not just moms, dads, families, grandparents. It is a really hard place to be able to say, I know this. Because we live in a time when we sort of are told that you don't know anything. And it really is up to you to seek it out and for you to understand for yourself what you believe. And then you can bring it to your children. That is so vital. And, you know, it's something that we talk about with inner work all the time, is sort of building up that space, that belief base, and really understanding where you think you go when you're done here, and where you think that spirit went, and then being able to sort of slow down and tap into that space. Now, I'm not talking about anything that's airy-fairy. I'm not talking about anything that's not discussed in many world faiths, and I would say in even smaller sects that aren't, you know, bigger world faiths. I want to encourage you that before you have to cross into the space of talking to your child about loss, that you know what you believe. So if you are watching this today and you go, but I don't know what I believe, sister, figure it out. It's time. You've got children. You're going to cross over these paths. It is actually, I will say, it is okay to say, you know, honey, I don't exactly know what happens after we die, but I know it'll be okay. It's okay to say that. It's also okay to say with a surety that you do know what happens when you die. You know, we have a faith base where we believe that our souls are eternal, and that this is just this body, this meat suit that we have is just a stopping off point. It's a place where we learn, and our job is to learn and return. Sometimes people return way faster than what we anticipated, and sometimes people that we think should return are here for a long time. And so I really encourage you that, like I said, if you're listening to this, to really think about what you believe, because that's what you will need to bring to your child in times like this. Now, of course, that losing a partner is an incredibly hard thing. And I have to say, I've not lost a partner. I have lost sisters. I lost both of my sisters to suicide. One about 20 years ago, and one, I guess it's been about 10 years. It's been about 10 years, Daddy. It seems like it's been about 10 years.
Yeah, it has been.
And so I have to say that I know that pain. I know the pain of losing somebody that's close to you. I will say that I lost probably the most important person in my world when I was 19. And it was my grandfather. He was somebody I was incredibly close to. He was my dad in so many ways, and loved him so much, still love him. But guess what? He's not gone. my perception of him's just changed. The same with my sisters. They're not gone. My perception of them has just changed. And we have to be able to be in a space to logically understand some of that and be able to then bring that to children. Now, one thing I'm going to guess, or I'm going to say, and this might be a little bit controversial, but I believe that before the veil closes for them around 6 or 7, they know. They know. Eric talks about a time when his grandpa passed, and you said you knew. You knew. You knew. And you were little. You were like 5, right?
I knew what the phone call was about when it happened before they even answered the phone. I was like, oh, that's...
And were you 5?
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy thing, and that happened before the phone call.
It's not crazy. I do believe that the younger ones, the ones that are not tainted by the world yet, that have not been filled with us about all things heady, they're really close to the veil, and that closeness to the veil affords them, I think, some protection and some understanding that we have forgotten. And so it is not that it doesn't exist. It's that we have forgotten it. We have forgotten that space. And so being in a place where we can tap into remembering that space means that we have to really work at it. And especially when we live in this place that is so deadening almost to the soul. And it doesn't matter how hard you try and what you keep yourself surrounded by. There are ways that sort of seeps in, that ways that shake our confidence, ways that get us feeling like we're not enough. And all of that comes from this space that is not a spiritual space. To encourage you with that piece, if you know what you believe, then when you have to cross this with your child, it will be a much easier space. And like I said, I think the young ones, the ones that are closer to the veil, they're going to logically understand things that you don't understand. So you might be at their feet asking them some questions. Don't get too heady with them. They don't bring them, don't ground them before they're ready, but just listen to them. They have so much wisdom, so much wisdom. Now I'm going to share a resource that we used when my aunt died, actually. My aunt had struggled with lupus for many years, and she was a favorite among the grandchildren. Everybody loved her, and so when she passed away, my mom came to me and she said, I need something to share at the service that will touch the children, that will help the children understand. And I can remember Super Sam was probably 5 or 6. And I remember saying, he already understands. And she was like, yeah, I know, but what about the other children there? And so there's this great book. It's called Healing Stories for Challenging Behavior. And while this sounds like a book that you pull out when your kids are being naughty, and it is, it's also a book that covers death. And I was going to look. There are, I was going to look and see how many stories there were about death in here. But maybe there are not a ton. I was trying to think. Should have looked this up before, sorry. Here we go. Illness, grieving, or death. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories in here about illness, grieving, or death. So, and it's a thick book. So there's also a ton of stories in here on other things, on other behaviors. Being irritating or impatient, lazy, noisy and disruptive, pinching, hurting, or fighting, shy and introverted. There's a ton of stories in here. And one thing that I would suggest is when you are, when you are struggling with other things, to pick up this book and then go from there and really sort of go through it and see if you can come up with your own stories. I think the stories that come from your heart are sometimes the best stories. It was the silkworm story, and there's a story in here about the silkworm and how it transforms, and there are so many stories like that you could tell. You could talk about caterpillars that turn into butterflies. But again, before you can tell a story, you've got to figure out what you believe, because they will ask you, especially if they're older, they will say, Mom, do you believe this? Is this true? If they are above 9, they're going to very much be in the place of, is this true? So you better know what you believe. You better know what and you and your partner better be on the same page about it, or at least in the same library, because they will try to poke holes through you if they're older and this has not been part of your belief system since they were young. They're going to try to poke holes in it. So you want to be in a place where you can say, I know, and Eric and I are in that place. We are in a place where we absolutely believe that we know, and we've had many spiritual experiences that confirm that to us, and so that makes it a much easier bridge to cross, whether it be a fish that dies or somebody that's dear and close to you that passes. They know that there's something that comes after. So I guess I just want to encourage you that if you are really struggling with this, to look inward, to look at what you believe, and if you are in a place where you have been hurt by religion, I want to remind you that religion is a construct of man. And so anytime you have any testimony of anything that has to do with religion, it goes much deeper than that. So, Eric and I have a strong testimony of our faith, but our faith goes beyond the borders of our religion. And so if you are in that place where you're really struggling with your faith, and with where you've walked, maybe you've been in a spot where you've been harmed by religion, I invite you to remember that religion is a construct of man, and that connection between you and the divine, no matter what noun you put on that, God, goddess, heavenly parents, whatever noun you put on that is between you and them, and not between you and religion. And so when you can get to a place where you are feeling strongly in that connection, then that's the space that you come from. If you are not there, I wish I could give you a big hug, because I understand. Listen, I have been in that spot where I wasn't there, where I thought I knew, where the faith of my youth did not resonate with me anymore, and I really struggled for several years. But I had these 3 little kids at the time, and I thought, I have got to figure this out. I had to figure this out, not just for me, but for them. And in figuring it out, it took me down a long journey that I will never be sorry that I took. It was such a beautiful journey, so many different paths that I went on to find where I am now. And, for the last 13 years, I've been pretty, 13 and a half years, I've been pretty happy with where I'm at. And so, but it took a lot of searching to get here. And so if you are in that searching place, my prayer for you is that you find what you're seeking, and that you make that a priority in your life, because it will make crossing these big events with your family, with your children, so much easier than it is when you dwindle in unbelief and you feel like you don't know anything. It feels so overwhelming and disheartening, and so many other words I could think of, when you don't know. It feels very frustrating when you don't know. You feel very helpless when you don't know. So it's better to know. So seek it, make it a part of your inner work, that you would know, that and put on that hat of, what would I do if my partner died tomorrow? What would I do if my mom or my uncle or a nephew or any of that? What would I do? What would I in turn tell my child? Most of us know somebody that's on death's door, or that could go at any minute. And it's always good to know where you sort of stand on that, because it's super helpful when you have to bring it to your child. There's no way you can hide this from children. Children know. I think it's interesting when Eric tells that story. He knew it because it seems like you were at church and you could feel it, right?
I had this thought that he died, and
it was his grandpa. So it was somebody his mother was incredibly close to. My mother-in-law, there were 2 children born to their family, but she lost her sister when she was very young, like 2 or 3. And so it was just my mother-in-law and her parents, and my mother-in-law lost her mother before Eric was born, right? Or right when you were born, right around the time you were born.
It was around the time my brother was
Oh,
born.
that's
So it was
right.
a
Okay,
couple-
so you were
I was
about
like
3.
2 or 3 when
So she was probably clinging that much more to your grandpa because that was all she had left. She'd lost a sister in her youth. She'd lost her mother already, and so this was her parent that she was clinging to. And Eric knew in church when that happened, and then when they got home, the phone call came, and he knew on the other end. Children know. Children know much more than we do. So give that space some thought. And I really and truly hope if this is something you're struggling with right now, pick up this book and really let some of the stories sink in for you, and let yourself wander and let yourself ask. Let yourself be in a meditative space of trying to sort all of this out. It's pretty big stuff. And sorting it out can feel really painful sometimes. So my prayer for you is that if you're in the space, that you have the words that you need, and that you can walk forward in faith and nourish yourself when you're in this space. It takes a while to get past it, but it does. Time does absolutely heal all wounds, and I would say that as you walk forward, it will probably take a few months before you feel like yourself again. And there's a mom that I'm working with right now, and she lost a sibling, and it was kind of sudden, and there's suspicion around that sibling's death. That's a really hard thing. It's a really hard thing. So with regards to that, I would say listen to the voice of the dead. Get in a spiritual alignment so that you can hear what's going on the other side. And I know that makes people think that I'm cracked, but I promise I'm not. Just get in alignment, and it helps so much. You have a wonderful week. Bye now.